here to talk about your new album, Again, Part 2. And so I know you had an Again Part 1, which was an EP that came out last year.
Yeah.
So tell me what the Again concept is all about, if you can.
The project started about 3 years ago, and it was initially going to be a solo piano voice project. And I was going to revisit some songs from the Men Without Hats catalog,
right,
and some cover songs that had influenced me as a young music fan growing up. And when we started recording at Piano and Voice, I started to get curious about what it would sound like with, some of the songs with full band.
Right.
And so we started doing some of the songs full band, and the project just basically morphed. And we started going back into the vault and getting songs out of the vault from way back when, Pop Goes the World sessions and stuff like that. And started putting it together with the songs. We've been on the road I put the band back on the road about 10 years ago. And so we wrote a lot of songs while I was on the road, while we were on tour, in the back of the tour bus. And then as we were putting it together, we came up with some new stuff. We got inspired and wrote some new songs. So it's about a 40-year span of songwriting in all.
Okay.
And it started off, what started off as a little kind of solo project turned into this double album that being released over a two-year period. So it was good. It grew organically, so it was all fun. We had a great time making it. We isolated ourselves on top of Vancouver mountain on Vancouver Island, overlooking the Pacific, and just spent almost a year just making music, just old school fashion, just renting a nice place, and building a mobile studio in it, and living there and just making music from dawn to dusk. And
sounds idyllic.
Yeah, we had a great time doing it.
So how does the band work together when you're all together in the studio, kind of clustered alone? Who does what?
Well, I'm the principal songwriter, so I write all the lyrics and music.
Yep.
My brother Colin is more of the producer. He'll be doing more of the production work, and our guitar player Sho Murray is also the engineer. He co-produced the record with us and engineered it. We have Colin's daughter Sahara Sloan on vocals with us this time. So it's a family affair again. And like I said, we had a great time making it.
Yeah, I thought I heard some female vocals in there somewhere. If the World Should End Today, is that one she's on?
Yeah, she's on that one, yeah.
What can you tell me about the song itself?
When I first laid eyes on you, my world ended. When I first laid eyes on you, time suspended.
Well, the song, although it seems quite timely, it was written over 5 years ago. It was initially written as a love song. It can be interpreted all kinds of ways. I kind of think of it makes me think of the first time I saw my son coming out of his mother's body, and that's what the lyrics kind of say. The first, when I first laid eyes on you, my world ended.
Right.
That's basically what happens. One world ends and another one starts. It's birth and death and rebirth and all those stories that we've been telling ourselves forever.
Cool. Now I see there's a tune on there called The Theme from the Summer of 72. I'm old enough to remember the summer of 42, not the actual summer of 42, but the film and the song. And so I was wondering what inspired that little instrumental bit in the middle of the album.
Well, besides that movie, I'm a product of that era. That's when I grew up. I was 15 years old in 1972, and so it was a really interesting period for music. It was birth of all kinds of music, heavy metal and R&B, disco at the end of it, and so it was. That's just my tribute to a memory of a fond memory of music in my youth.
Yeah, I think I saw a Billboard chart from 72 just recently, because people were posting things from 50 years ago, and the diversity in the music is pretty amazing. I mean, you had your singer-songwriter stuff, your glam stuff. There's some metal in there, all things like, Summer of 42 got it in the top 20. It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, there's a lot of things happen in that decade musically. It was this jazz rock. I mean, I still listen to most of the music I listen to is from 1970 to 1975. So
yep, nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
We're of similar vintage, so there you go.
Yeah.
So what from that do you hear in what Men Without Hats did especially in the 80s? Because some might say, well, that was very different because it was kind of technologically driven with the synths and all that stuff. So how do you see how they're related?
I've always thought that new wave music, 80s music, for me anyway, was an extension of prog rock, progressive music.
Sure.
And disco. It was electronic music with a dance beat, keyboard music with synthesizers with a dance beat. That's what I brought to the table anyway. That was my experience. I was a big prog rock fan. Bands like Genesis, Pink Floyd, Yes, and Emerson, Lake and Palmer. And I was also front and center for the disco movement. So I just combined those two loves, and I was ready. I was a classically trained pianist. My mother was a music teacher at McGill University here in Montreal. So I had the tools to participate in this explosion, in this sort of revolution, pop culture revolution that was going on end of the 70s, beginning of the 80s. Were
you influenced by punk at all as well?
Oh yeah, quite a bit. The band started off as a guitar band.
Right.
Before we got into keyboards, we were doing Cramps covers and contortion stuff, but I made a conscious decision. I wanted to reach more people. I wanted to make my music more commercial, where a lot of people go the opposite way. And back in those days, anyway, it was punk new wave. When you went into a record store, there was all your classic rock, classic music, and there was one bin, and it was punk new wave, and everything was lumped together. And that's the way the shows were like that too. We would play in places with punk bands because nobody else would book us anywhere else.
Right. And
we shared the stage with a lot of hardcore guitar bands. And but it was the whole DIY mentality. So we connected on a lot of points. So it wasn't all it wasn't all punk versus new wave. It was
right.
We got along.
Now, I think I read somewhere that you used your Prophet 5 that you used back in the day, even on this record as well. So specifically, what is special about that? And in general, how did technology drive the music that you made back then?
Well, back then it was almost there's a French word for it, I don't know what his name was, artisanal, an artisan. Everything was done by hand. We did stuff for the musicians out there who know what MIDI is, but MIDI was a system that connects. MIDI is a system that connects you, allows you to connect all your keyboards together to other instruments and other computers and everything like that. And we did the Rhythm of Youth, we did the Safety Dance before MIDI had appeared on the scene. So everything was done by hand. But that gives it that kind of bounce, that it has this kind of human feel to it. Everything's not perfectly synced and everything's not right on the money. So that's kind of what I think gives it a bit of a charm to the sound itself. And by Pop Goes the World, just for example, technology had changed. MIDI had come in, and so you listen to the difference, and there's 3 million tracks on Pop Goes the World as opposed to Rhythm of Youth, and that's just the way things were going. And
right. And how does that when we on this current record, on Again Part 2, how does technology influence what we hear on there? Because it's obviously very different 40 years down the track.
Yeah, like you mentioned, we used the some of the gear, and the Prophet 5 was one of the keyboards we used. We've kept some of the gear that it's made it through the decades, and there's a difference in sound. Everything's digital now, and the original sounds it was real oscillators. They were analog. It wasn't digital samplings of sounds of oscillators. It was everything was coming out of the machine, was being made inside the machine. And so that makes a difference in your sound. It gave it a kind of warmth. It's you can compare it to the difference between a real drum and a drum machine. That's it. There's almost that difference between analog and digital.
Right.
So that was that. With this new album, we tried to blend it though. We used analog. We obviously used digital technology and Pro Tools and everything.
Yeah,
like that.
all that stuff. But
we did kettle drum tracks on outdoors and stuff like that, and we did we did a lot of real recording that didn't come from the computer. And back our last record, Love in the Age of War, we didn't go as far as that one. That one we actually made a conscious effort to not go over 24 tracks even digitally, to make it sound like it would have back then when you had the constraints of a tape machine that you couldn't.
Right. Yep.
You couldn't put the 1,000 tracks that you can put on songs today, but there's good and there's bad. There's good and bad. There's pros and cons. It's like everything.
So you mentioned that the songs that comprise again part 2 kind of span a big time difference. What holds them together in your mind? What brought these particular songs together to make this album?
The themes, I guess. The lyrically, these songs, like, we didn't have to change too much in these songs. They all, a couple of lyrics here and there, and work on some choruses maybe and intros, but the songs were pretty much there, and the themes that are being developed are the same that we're doing today. And it's like with Pop Goes the World. I mean, people are still talking about it, about the ecology, about the planet, about climate change, and still talking about human rights, and still talking about the things that we were talking about back in the 80s, and that we have not inventing anything. We were just picking up from what the previous generation had been talking about before us in the 60s, and so it's a continuation of that. And I think that's what holds the record together. And the fact that my songwriting hasn't changed that much. I still write songs the same way, and but it is I've played it for the people that have heard it now have told me that it reminds them a lot of Pop Goes the World.
So the album starts with a 47-second intro, and ends with kind of a big flourish with thinking about how did you put these songs together? How did you arrange them on the record? What were you thinking of?
They just kind of fell together. That was another organic thing that happened. We were just they just seemed natural. We never really gave it too much thought. They just kind of seemed that, oh, this will fit there and that'll fit there, and it all kind of fit. And we didn't make much changes to the original lineup. No, it was it was a fun record to make, and those records are always, fun records are always fun to make.
Gotcha. Well, that's good. And are you doing gigs at all, or what's the story there? Yeah,
we've got a UK tour planned in May, US with the Lost 80s, with the Flock of Seagulls and the English Beat in the summer.
Okay, that's cool.
And then going across Canada in the fall. So yeah, it's the 40th anniversary of the Rhythm of Youth album.
Right.
So this we're going to be playing in the shows that we're headlining. We're going to be playing the whole album from front to back in the first set of the show. So it's took me by surprise. The length of the first album.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You don't remember it being that long?
I don't remember it being that short.
Okay.
And then I realized it was 10 songs that were made for the radio. So that's why the album clocks in under 30 minutes. So
Yeah. Well, the music business is a very different beast these days.
it is.
Better or worse, or just different in your opinion?
It's just different, it's like the way we were talking about before, having to adjust to the technology and the, making the music. This is just another part of it. I mean, when we started, the new thing came in while, halfway through what we were doing was the music video. That was our new tech. That was our internet.
Yep.
And so it's just things you have to get used to. And it's what it has done. I mean, it has put music into a lot more people's hands, which is a good thing. I think the technology has made music a lot more democratic, and I think that's a good thing.
It's definitely accessible. So, although you may not be getting paid as much as you used to.
No, but
we continue on. No. Have you ever been down to this part of the world, to New Zealand?
Got close. We were in Australia. In 2016, and no, we'd love to be there. I'm thinking of buying my retirement bunker there.
It's a wise move. All right. Very good. All righty. Well, thank you very much for taking time to talk to me. I really appreciate it. Good luck with the record. Hope it does everything you want it to do. And come on down when you get a chance.
We will.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.